Greetings, Vikings fans and hobbled Vikings players, which sounds like half the team isn't playing tonight, so they're probably bundled up listening to the best pregame show, at least in South Minneapolis. I'll say we'll start small. I am Joe Johnson, worried host of this show, a few other shows that we do on Purple Territory Network. And I own purpleTTSD.com and VikingsTerritory.com. I am here with hopefully some more enthusiastic, less terrified Vikings fans and analysts in Jordan Hawthorne and Jack Day. What's up, fellas?
How we doing? I can't really make any promises and say I'm not as scared as you, to be honest. I'm not going to lie about that one.
I will.
Unfortunately.
I will bring my young optimism to the table by saying I'm a little scared. Especially since it just got announced that Xavier's not going to play because, Michael Thomas is an absolute stud. But, let's remember that the offensive line, Leaf hasn't played in a while. Isadora has looked good last week whenever he had to come in for Compton. So there's a little bit of optimism, but I could very well see this game just going south.
Yeah. Really quickly, do you guys want to talk a little bit about what you do for the sites for people that don't know? Just so I don't bury your accomplishments.
Yeah, I'll go first because I'm an egomaniac, I guess. I write for Purple PTSD, and I also am the host of the Load the Box podcast, which I'm now claiming is the most popular Vikings podcast based out of Cincinnati.
Hey!
Because I think that's a pretty niche category.
Yeah, it's the small victories, man.
That's what I do.
What about you, Mr. Day?
I am also a contributing writer for Purple PTSD. I do game recaps, or at least I try my best to do game recaps, and I also have done this show every week besides one, and I believe that was the Bills week, so hopefully that was the reason. I'm kind of a
So you're the lucky charm
guy. Let's hope so, because I can quote The Office. I'm not superstitious. I'm just a little stitious.
So yeah, these injuries suck. Is the best way to put it. I mean, I drove to the gas station to get a Red Bull before the show, and I thought, well, we being the Vikings, I guess that's hyper unprofessional, but I'm learning. They, for the first half of that playoff game, seemed to have Breeze and company right where they wanted them. Zimmer had a perfect scheme going. Then they went in at halftime. Everson Griffin came out after the game and said maybe we got overconfident and look towards the next week. So I was thinking back to that and thinking, okay, well, why am I so nervous? And then I realized that half the team seems to be missing this week. Just announced Xavier Rhodes is going to miss the game. It would have been miraculous if he made it, just based on, I know that it was a sprained ankle and everything, but that injury, the initial just eye test of it was that it looked like maybe he'd be out for the year, maybe longer. So, I mean, that's a silver lining, I guess. But as a hyper-selfish person, I just don't want to lose to the Saints the same week that the Packers might beat the Rams. That's really all I care about, and I'll just shut up for the rest of the show. But how worried are you guys about the depleted team, the newly depleted defense? I mean, they've been, had some injuries or mental health issues on the defensive line, but now with Anthony Barr out, Xavier Rhodes out, you got Kamara coming at you, and then you got Michael Thomas, Drew Brees. Yeah, ick. Jack, what do you think beyond ick?
I don't know. I kind of have the same feeling as you. It worries the hell out of me. Drew Brees has been shattering records this season. He's been doing it for a long time now, and he's one of the most accurate, or if not the most accurate passer we have ever seen. And going up against the banged up defense without our star corner, the Vikings star corner, and I'm not sure who they're going to match up on Michael Thomas, but Michael Thomas is a freak by himself, and that just having Michael Thomas out wide, you have Drew Brees, like I said, and then you have that 1-2 punch with Ingram and Kamara. I'm a little bit excited to get to see Holton Hill get another chance. He was impressive last week, but at the same time, I don't want a rookie out there that doesn't have the experience. And I've been saying, I feel like I've said something about somebody I've been excited for every week, but during the preseason, Eric Wilson was another guy that looked good to me during the preseason. Granted, he wasn't starting, but I'm excited to see Eric Wilson get a chance to start for Barr. Obviously, we're going to miss Barr, but Eric Wilson looked like a bright spot in the preseason. And we're missing guys, but we're also getting probably one of our best leaders back in Everson Griffin. He always knows how to get that stadium rocking, and he just fires up the team, and he's the leader that we kind of been missing here the last few weeks without him. So I'm excited to get him back on the field and get him out there. So I'm worried for our defense, but I know our offense can also put up points. So I'm kind of thinking this could end up being a shootout.
Yeah. I did our prediction on the Purple Journal podcast, and there's some strategy involved because me and Joel really predict, and then we keep track of who was the furthest off throughout the season, and he went for a shootout, so I thought maybe, it would be one of those games where everyone thought it'd be a shootout that'll end up being like some tough, NFC black and blue type situation. But the more I think about it, the more I realize I should not be running a podcast, let alone 2 websites, because that doesn't make a lot of sense. I wanted to touch on what you said really quickly and then get back to Jordan's thoughts, too, on injuries. When it comes to the coverage, do you think that they'll just go out there and say, we're going to play straight up, or as straight up as the Zimmer secondary can play? Or do you think they might put someone like Trey Waynes on Thomas just to alleviate maybe some of the pressure for Holton Hill? Or, Mackenzie Alexander's been here a while, so does he deserve less pressure? Maybe not, but, he's a corner guy. Maybe he'll do something on the outside to spell Hill. I don't know. I'm trying to think what best way to do that. And either of you, I don't know, Jack, you brought it up, so if you had any thoughts on that. I'm a huge Trey Waynes apologist. I think he's had a huge season. Across the board, he's always been a sure tackler and great in the run game, but I think this could be a big night for him, too, in that regard, getting his name out there.
For sure, I agree. I've been really high on Trey Waynes this year, and obviously he was a first-round pick out of Michigan State, so he has the talent, he has the speed, and like you said, I absolutely love cornerbacks that can help out in the run game. He flies downhill and he goes low and he wraps up. It's
like Antoine Winfield, but bigger.
Yeah, I don't want to say that because I loved Antoine Winfield. I don't know if I'm ready to say that yet, but he shows flashes of that. I can agree with that a little bit. But as far as the defense goes, it worries me that because we have guys out that we're going to stick in like some zone coverage, and if we can't get a decent pass rush on Breeze, he's going to absolutely be able to pick that apart, and that worries me. I'm hoping we can get pressure on Breeze because that would help out a lot. If Everson being back could help get, like, if we can get a 4-man rush going and be getting to him, that would be huge in a game like this.
Because blitzing Breeze is not the best option. I think statistically, Luke Braun said he's better against the blitz than he is straight up. So you got to get that pressure. And
I also think too. I think we're going to see a lot of the 3 safety sets that we've been seeing a little bit more of lately. I think all of our safeties have kind of proven themselves that they deserve a spot on the field. We have kind of an abundance of safeties, and Aloka's starting, and he's played well. He's been running downhill and making tackles, and Curse and Harris have both been in there too. So
and Curse has
see that.
Curse has been good playing a corner too for a guy that's 6'4". That to me kind of felt like a little bit of a silver lining to the Mike Hughes situation because you get a guy who's 6'4". At the time, I was thinking you have Waynes and Rhodes are both, 6'2". So you have these huge guys in the context of being corners back there. That seems exciting. So, yeah, I should also throw Curse out there as a corner and as a safety. And everyone loves Iloka, and he can help maybe spell a little bit of the bar stuff because he can play like a hybrid linebacker as well. So maybe it's not as doom as gloom as we're making it out to be. Maybe that second half of that playoff game just sticks in everyone's head. It's a little bit mine in particular. But yeah, there's so much just right here to talk about still. Jordan, like your thoughts on defensive injuries, Everson Griffin coming back, and we can talk about Everson a little bit more too.
Yeah, so just to touch on how the Vikings are going to play, you started bringing up Jayon Curse, and like Mackenzie Alexander, just how we're going to handle it. So Jayon has looked great in the slot this season, like coming in, playing that slot position, which is a difficult thing to do, but he's looked really good in that position. And whenever I first started writing for Purple PTSD, I went back and I was writing an article about defensive backs or something like that, and I watched some tape on Mackenzie Alexander in college, and I think he's better on the outside than he is on the inside.
I've heard that from a lot of people.
I think the Vikings just need someone to go in the slot. So we just put Alexander in the slot because it was like, okay, he's kind of small. Hopefully he can make the transition. So I would like to see Wayne's shadow Thomas and then let Mac be the other outside guy and then let Jayon and maybe Holton Hill. Like maybe Holton Hill can step in and take some outside snaps and you can move Mac back in because Mackenzie Alexander has the experience. But just overall with the injuries, like Jack said, I'm a huge Eric Wilson guy. I think he can really step up, and I think that the Vikings' plan for him might be to take Anthony Bau's job after this season if a deal doesn't get done. So I have high praise for him, so I think he'll step up and play well. And then with Everson coming back, I'm kind of curious just to throw a question out to you, like just to you, Joe. I'll flip the tables on you here.
Crap.
I know, and to Jack as well. But like, do you guys think Everson should resume rushing from the left side, or do you think he should take over where Stephen Weatherly is because Danielle Hunter has looked so good rushing from the left side? Because I think we should leave Danielle where he is because Danielle Hunter leads the NFL in sacks. Oh, he's tied for the lead. Not anymore because Aaron Donald has played his game so far. But what do you guys think about that? Do you think we should just go back to the defense we ran? Or?
I think they'll. I mean, personally, I agree with you. I think you got a guy who hasn't played in 5 weeks. You don't take the hot hand away from the guy who's been there. You don't know how he's going to perform. You expect the best out of him. He's been great. God, that's a really hard question because he's so good at coming off. He's like the quickest guy in the NFL off the snap. So you don't want to screw up his mechanics either. But I don't see how you can 100% just go back to the way things were. I think it's gonna be a mix of everything. I think he's gonna start the game obviously, but I don't think he's gonna be 100% on the left side. Nor should he be. You got to keep feeding Hunter and let him come back a little bit slowly. Mental health stuff isn't the easiest thing to come back from. It's not really like an injury, especially for a guy who's really known for his technique and doing things the way he does them. Counting this, being on the snap count and everything. So bring him in slowly, see how that works, and go from there.
Yeah, Weatherly hasn't looked bad either. So I think we should definitely. I don't think we should just not let Weatherly play now because we've got Danielle Hunter and Everson Griffin again. I think Everson and Stephen Weatherly should be splitting their snaps. I don't know if it's 75-25, if it's 50-50. 75 would be Everson Griffin. I think Everson should play a lot tonight because we need him, but I don't know. It's interesting to see how the Vikings are going to use him now that he's back.
It's a good problem to have too. I mean, Everson last year was on pace to break records, and Danielle's doing the same thing this year. So we'll see, but I think that's really going to be probably the key to the game, getting pressure on Breeze from the front four and letting the next guy up behind that kind of fall into place. Hopefully that's how it works. It worked that way in the first half in the playoffs last year too, and then that kind of It didn't seem just like the players let up. It seemed like a scheme shift in the second half. I don't know if you guys know more about that, but
Zimmo did start playing a lot more off coverage in the second half because I think he was trying to sit on the lead, and you just can't do that against Drew Brees. But continue.
You guys might not. You've probably heard of it, but you're not as old as I am. But when I was in my teens, really the whole Randy Moss era was predicated on them going up because they were scoring a shit ton of points, and then they would go into prevent and lose. And I don't want to call that prevent defense because it isn't by definition prevent defense, but whenever I see stuff like that, it just reminds me of Jimmy Hitchcock and these horrible DBs that we had just giving up games to Brett Favre in the last second because we just weren't doing anything that we did early in the game. So I think older fans are terrified of that notion. And
go ahead.
I was just gonna say we brought Zimmer in here, partially Leslie Frazier too, to get away from some of that stuff and be a more hard-nosed team in this division. So hopefully they learn from those mistakes from last year.
Yeah, I hate whenever we go to prevent defense. Like, you saw it in the Green Bay game at the very end. Rogers, took him down and had him in position to make a kick, and luckily Crosby missed it. And you saw it in Philadelphia. We had a 2-possession lead, so we just kind of sat back by the end zone and said, okay, just take 15, 15, 15, and then it gives them a chance to win. I mean, you have to trust your defense a little bit, I think, because you have a really good defense.
I would rather lose by being aggressive than lose by the opposite, I guess.
Absolutely.
Especially if the opposite has been working the entire game. I know you want to have them run out the clock by throwing across the middle a lot and picking up chunk yardage, but damn it, I've seen enough of it.
I also think, too, a little bit of it is, I don't know if this is even a term, but the prevent offense, too, that's obviously not a term, but that same
I know what you mean.
Extent, because it just seems like when we
run it 3 times for no reason.
Yeah, when when Cousins is hot or Latavius is running hot, it just seems like the Vikings they try to switch things up when we have the lead, and we'll, like you said, Joe, we'll run 3 times and get shut out, and then we'll give the ball back to the other team's offense and let our defense do the work, which in the past has worked because Zim obviously has a lot of faith in this defense, but when you're sitting back your D-backs 20 yards and you're giving up 15-yard drag routes play after play, that's not going to work, I don't think. We can't be doing that. I personally think that our offense, too, needs to just stay aggressive, especially in a game like this, because the Saints are always going to be able to have that comeback mentality, and they're always going to hang around games. So if we get them early, we just got to kind of keep our foot on the pedal and keep going.
And what do you guys
griping about that? I've been griping about that for the entire season about how we need to play like Philadelphia did in the championship game, where they got up and they stayed up.
Or the Patriots
points.
always do.
Exactly. I know this isn't Vikings related, but a little update: the Packers just fumbled the kickoff, and the Rams now have the ball. Yeah, it looks like the Rams are going to win. The Pack have 1 timeout. There's 1:50, and the Rams are in field goal range, and they have the lead as well. So the Packers might lose. Hooray!
There is a God. Speaking of the offense, we'll get into Cousins in the passing game and Thielen and that in a second, but what do you guys think conceptually about running the ball against the Saints team that is number 1 in that regard on defense? How much of that do you think is because the Saints put up points, maybe other teams don't run the ball as often as they otherwise might, or do you think that after these past 2 weeks of having some success in building there, having Latavius, the Tay train, kind of showing people that maybe it's not so bad having Delvin Cook not here, not that it wouldn't be amazing to have him too, but do you think they'll try to run the ball?
Yeah.
I do.
Ooh.
Go ahead, Jack.
I think they will. Zimmer's been pushing it on DiFilippo for the entire year now. He can't run the ball enough. Even if we ran the ball 50 times and ran for 150 yards, I think there's always going to be a little bit room for improvement in Zimmer's eyes, and that's kind of how we've been the last couple of years. We've been able to run the ball, and then that play action opens up, and that's when Cousins is at his best as well, too. So if you can open that up for Cousins, I think that's huge. And even without Delvin, I know we've touched on this in the past, but Latavius is a very, very solid RB2. And then we have more running backs than the average team does too. And Rock Thomas, CJ Ham is the fullback, and then Mike Boone too has been pretty impressive with his limited carries. He hasn't gotten to show off too much, but he's been impressive when he's gotten his chance.
Love Mike Boone.
Chances. I agree. I'm a big Mike Boone guy too. I say that about a lot of guys on this team, but I don't know. I just have a love for this team, obviously. But yeah, I think we're gonna try and pound it, and I don't know. Hopefully, it opens up the play action game for Kirk, because that's when he can really get going.
Yeah, I think it's so. I think that running the ball isn't as necessary in the first half and even in like the beginning of the second half. But once you get a lead, it's crucial, because you do want to chew clock on offense, and you do want to be able to hand the ball off 3 times and get a first down and just eat, 2-minute chunks off the clock every first down that you get. But I think Cousins can throw the ball. Like, even if our run game isn't going well, he has proven that he can still make this passing attack lethal.
Yeah.
But it's almost like a cherry on top if we can run the ball successfully, kind of like we have the past 2 weeks. I think that tackling the Latavius thing, I will say it every time we talk about Latavius. We got him because we thought he was going to be the guy when we let Adrian Peterson go. And then we got lucky because Dalvin Cook fell to us, and we were like, okay, so we think he's better. But, I mean, the Vikings have really, really high thoughts on Latavius, and I also do. I think the past 2 weeks he's kind of made a case that, like, hey, Dalvin has a higher ceiling, but, like, as of right now, I think Latavius is the more dependable guy to hand the ball off to. Obviously, Dalvin adds what he adds, but I think Latavius has proven that he gets results.
It's hard to make the argument otherwise. I mean, I know I'm seeing, and I'm sure you guys have picked up on this as well, like in the Vikings writer sphere or just online in general from fans, people that are kind of like, well, Cook needs to play. He hasn't played. He's played, 5 games since they drafted him. Some impatience. I don't think they're blaming him, because clearly this season proves that, like, hamstring injuries are the worst. But the narrative that shifted after we drafted Cook away from all the accomplishments that Murray had in Oakland for a team that's basically a dumpster fire, as we're seeing this year. People wrote a lot of that off and just said, he was a volume guy. I heard that a lot. Like, he got a lot of touches. That's why he made the Pro Bowl and the AFC sucks or anything like that. He's a good back. He's not Adrian Peterson, but there's flashes of that there. I mean, that stiff arm reminded me of AP. Maybe an older AP, but an AP. So, yeah, I like him too. I mean, I think we're all fans of the team, and we're going to go through and say we like all these guys, most of them anyway. But it's good to have that depth, and this team proves that depth matters. I don't want to transition to the offensive line because that's an easy joke. I want to go just talk about Cousins and Thielen a little bit too. Mainly because, if any Saints fans were listening to this in the beginning and me being all freaked out about injuries on the defense, they'd probably say, yeah, join the club. They've had a lot of injuries in their secondary. I think that's the main culprit as to why that unit's struggling. I mean, they were young anyway. They weren't expected to be that great last year. They kind of coalesced and played well, but they've got, a bunch of guys that are hurt, and teams are exploiting that. And I think I don't know if you guys read Luke Braun's piece about the coverage issues that the Saints have, but basically he compared some footage between like a standard Vikings play with like pre-snap changes, trying to confuse a quarterback, to what the Saints do, which is they go out there basically like in a preseason game 1 defense, and then they just stand there because they don't really have the ability to do anything else, whether it's guys don't know the playbook enough because they're young and inexperienced, or they're just not good enough to do some of the things that they wanted to do. So I think there's a huge opportunity for Thielen to continue and break records, tie Megatron. I think this is the 8th game on a national stage. I think that's going to happen. I would love for it to not all fall on Cousins' shoulders just because he tends to fumble a lot. And that in close games, that's going to be the difference, or a lot of these batted balls, which couldn't turn into interceptions. So I don't know. I just feel like there's a ripe opportunity for the passing offense to continue chugging along. And I don't know if there was anything in particular about Cousins' game you guys want to talk about against this defense, or if you wanted to look at maybe a Thielen versus Thomas angle. I'll let you choose, and I'll start with Jordan.
So I'm gonna go. I just want to mention the Thielen versus Thomas angle, just because I think right now Thielen is better. Thielen, I think right now, is the best receiver in the NFL, which is a hefty thing to say with Antonio Brown and Julio Jones and OBJ, all the names that you hear. But you look at the production that he's having. You look at the fact that it's been this way for 2 years now. You could say 3. I mean, even 2 seasons ago, he was a pretty dang good wide receiver, and I think he's just consistently been really good. And this is kind of his big breakout season. And we might never see a season like this from him again. But just as this moment, going into the week 8 game, if I could talk, I think Thielen's the best wideout. I'd love to have Michael Thomas. I mean, we could do Thomas versus Treadwell, but then we'd all be really sad. Probably.
Can I just jump in really quickly and talk about? I don't bring up takes that I'm right about very often, maybe because my takes are always wrong, or because I just don't like doing that. But I wrote a bunch of stuff before the draft that year. Here's the best way to put it. We did a live chat of the draft. The first thing said in that chat was by me, and it said anybody but Treadwell was the first comment. And I said, I really want Michael Thomas, but we can probably get him in the second round. And, I am a Big Ten apologist and weirdo, and obviously he played for the Big Ten. But can you imagine having him, Thielen, and Diggs? It's a Madden team. I don't think, you could say maybe, I know what you're going to ask, I think, that things wouldn't have maybe ended up the same way. Like Thomas, there's not enough balls to go around, perhaps, for the 3 guys like that.
Would Thomas get his opportunity, or would Thielen get his opportunity? Because I think, Diggs, at that time, he was already he had flashed a little bit. But I think if we had Thomas, because I hear that thrown around a lot, and it's kind of like, well, if we had Thomas, then, would Thomas have been the guy last season?
Or would we even have Cousins in the first place? Because somebody else would have been just balling all over the place. Yeah, it's hard to say,
It's difficult, but in a kind of like a fantasy football perspective,
yes.
Good God, that would be yes. The best wide receiver ever assembled. To touch back on just Cousins to Thielen, I just have to laugh and say, do you guys remember before the season started and during the preseason, everyone was like, doesn't look like Cousins and Thielen have any chemistry together.
Yeah, because he had all those Diggs, every pass was the Diggs.
I don't know if I don't think that was planned. I don't think they were trying to hide Thielen or anything. But man, it's funny to go back and look at tweets that have aged like crap because of the fact that Thielen's on pace to break a lot of records.
I just had a great idea for a new social media platform that would combine Twitter with what is the one? Snapchat. So all your tweets just delete after 2 days. For sports writers that have terrible takes, I could
that
use.
Would be, or for athletes that are coming into the NFL or something like that.
Or people running for office that don't want a bunch of stuff from 10 years ago to pop up. We just threw a $1 billion idea out there.
Anybody that has a salary of over $200,000, delete your Twitter. Just get off of it.
It's not worth it. Jack, what do you think about? Do you want to touch on Thielen? I also, as a caveat, and to kick it back to Jordan after that, in regards to chemistry, it's hard to say, do you want Diggs to be more involved? Because I think he had 14 targets last week. But do you want to see maybe more production from Diggs alongside Thielen as a secondary question?
I was literally, just before you said that, going to say that maybe this is the week that Diggs gets his and he kind of has his week. But at the same time, I think a lot of our yards are going to be through the air tonight. I think we're going to try to run the ball and keep pounding that way. But I also think the majority of our yards are going to come through the air. And I think Thielen's going to get his 8th straight game with 100 yards, and I think Diggs is going to have a big game too. But other than that, I think you guys kind of touched on that for the most part. I don't really have too much more to say. I agree with Thielen right now is the best wide receiver in football. You can't really argue with numbers. I've had side conversations with Joe about this, about people really irritating me on Twitter.
I was gonna say he's not athletic though, to piss you off a little bit.
It just gets me going because the disrespect for him is still there, and I've been a Thielen guy since he made the team because it's one of the cooler stories that we've had on the Vikings team for a long time. And now what he's doing now, on pace for over 1,800 yards and having a chance to have 8 straight games with over 100 yards, something that only Kelvin Johnson has done, that is absolutely insane. I can't understand why people are still disrespecting this guy. I don't know if it is because he's a white wide receiver and people.
I think it's and I think it's a combination of him being like a Division II guy and paying for a tryout and being on special teams and like that Mark Wahlberg movie Invincible, like coming into the league that way doesn't happen as much anymore. But yeah, it's not just that he gets a lot of looks, it's that he makes the most of them. And I think that's the difference between him and a lot of other people. That he's going to get 100 yards even if he has to cough up like thick ass blood while doing it. You don't see a lot of high wide receiver ones doing that. You get a lot of like OBJ punching inanimate objects to show how tough he is. But he's not bleeding.
He's gritty. He's a gritty guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, my favorite Thielen moment so far this season was it was in the Rams game when he got like kneed to the head.
Yeah.
And the referees pulled him out and he was throwing his mouthpiece and he was screaming, he was kicking dough, he was so pissed off to come out of the game, and you can just see in his eyes in moments like that, like, man, this guy wants to win a football game for the Minnesota Vikings. Like, he loves this team. It would be like if one of us got an opportunity to go and like do something to help the Vikings win a game.
That's a perfect point
on the field. It's so cool to see, him out there doing that and him balling out, and then also like. If you want to make the case that, like, well, it's easy to get 100 yards a game whenever you get thrown to so much, 1, he gets open. 2, sometimes Cousins doesn't throw him the best ball, and Thielen has to make diving catches. Like, Thielen has had some amazing grabs this season that have just blown me away.
I wonder what his catch radius is on, like, Madden. It has to be, like, 200, like they just broke the code for him. Because he can, that's like, for him, for those that say he's not an athletic receiver, that's just his catch radius is all you have to say. I mean, it's
well, he doesn't have what is it, fell speed, Joe. Even though he ran a fell at the combine that he went to.
That's my favorite quote ever. Well, he's not a 4.4 guy. Well, yeah, he is. Actually,
kind of jump in on that too. So the comparison that's been bothering me a lot is Packers fans basically saying that he is nowhere near as talented as Davante Adams is.
Okay, I think you said Jordy.
I'll just say this, that if there's any Packer fans listening right now, Adam Thielen's better than Jordy Nelson. You guys can come at me and argue with me that all you want. I'll stick with that.
Davante Adams
all day,
too?
every day. Talent-wise, I think they're close. I think they're pretty comparable, but right now Thielen's better. I don't think you can argue with that. Like, what he's doing, if you give Thielen Aaron Rodgers, like a healthy Aaron Rodgers, he's going to go out there and he's going to put up numbers just like Jordy. That's my opinion. I don't know if you guys agree with that fully, but...
No, that's true. That's why people still pick up, no-name guys for the fantasy team that play for the Packers when there's an injury because they think it's Aaron Rodgers. And the Vikings haven't had that. Maybe they do now. But, Thielen's gotten his numbers regardless of who's throwing him the ball. And I think that's a very big difference. And I think a lot of guys are super talented. They just maybe don't end up in the right situation. I always compare Moss to Jerry Rice and say, well, imagine if Moss came in the league and had Montana and Steve Young back-to-back as opposed to Gus Frerotte, Todd Bauman, Spurgeon Wynn, and he still has, better highlights. He changed the defense. Like, it's hard to make those comparisons. But I think that the bottom line with Thielen is, every year at training camp, he talks about, like, well, I got so much I got to get better at. He never, like, feels like he's a complete guy, and I don't know if that's, like, the Tom Brady in him because of his, the way that he made it to the league, but it's for him, it's a drive that most guys don't have, I think, is the best way to put it.
Did you see it was 2 weeks ago. It was after the Arizona game, I believe. He was in a press conference, and, everyone obviously was like, oh, my gosh, you're the best, man. And he was like, I've got so much I could do better. And they were like, like what? And he's like, I suck at blocking. And he just came out and said, like, I'm not a good blocker, and I'm going to get better at blocking so I can be, like, the best all-around receiver. I think he's going to, like, end up in the Larry Fitzgerald level of wide receiver. Like, just somebody that does it all and loves the team and, loves the game and is an amazing athlete and does all that stuff. I mean, he's amazing.
Did you guys, this is kind of handed, do you see the cleats he's wearing tonight?
No, I didn't, not yet.
He's paying respect to Joe Mauer. It's pretty sweet.
Oh.
He showed up in a Mauer jersey, too.
So is he, cool. Like, working, it's Adidas, right? Like, I thought they were just sending those to him.
There's this guy.
Or are they, working together now? Or some random dude sending it?
There's a guy that him and Diggs both, I know, go to, they get their cleats through this artist who does the paint work for him, but I don't remember who it was. I saw it earlier.
Yeah, because I tried to unannounced drive up to Vikings headquarters with a box this week, and it went better than I didn't think about it until I was like, wait a minute, this, like, the security guard is looking at me a certain kind of way. I'm like, maybe I should have called ahead. So I'm sure it's not just some, like, guy sending them.
Just some random guy shows up with a box.
Yeah, I got a box for Thielen.
Don't open it.
Don't drop this.
I think there's, like, a guy that kind of, like, for the whole NFL, kind of just, that's kind of his niche. He kind of does, he paints
super
cleats
awesome
for guys,
cleats.
And he makes really cool looking cleats, so.
Yeah, those are increasingly amazing, those cleats.
Are they allowed style? Can they wear those in games now? Because I remember last year people were getting in trouble for that, but I could have sworn they
changed the rule. Yeah.
Yeah, because I've seen them wearing them.
Yeah. Speaking of, like, stylistic stuff, this is something that I guess only I noticed, but Thielen started the season wearing white gloves, and it kind of made me angry because, like, he's known for, like, those bright yellow gloves that he wore all last season.
Yeah, that you thought were like a penalty, the penalty flag you have to take.
Every time.
It makes me so happy to see him in those, though, because it's so easy to tell who's catching the ball.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I guess it's already easy because, he's white, and that's kind of like...
Hey, we got it could be Zylstra, too,
Give all of
that's true.
catches to Thielen. They're the same guy. They're Minnesota undrafted.
So let's get into predictions, since I promised you guys that we'd be done at 7. So people listening, I think that works better too, just so people can get, like, situated and maybe crack a beer if they haven't already, or run to the store or whatever. I'll go first just because I kind of made mine known. And I will say that it tastes like absolute dog crap coming out of my mouth. And I can't change it by the bylaws of the podcast gods, but I predicted that the Vikings will lose. I believe it was 23-20 or 21. So I didn't think it was going to be... I thought it was going to be a hard-nosed fight. I will say, and maybe it's because misery loves company or something, but I do feel a lot more encouraged after the show than I did before it, even though we didn't really dispel most of my fears. I just, Cousins is a baller. I compared him to Drew Brees on Purple PTSD and Vikings Territory earlier. Actually, it was last week because I wanted to beat anybody with a similar thought, which apparently I did. So, I think this could be a huge coming out party for people realizing just how good Cousins has been on top of Thielen as well, nationally. 23-21, though, I'll go with, and I'll let you guys decide who goes next.
You can go ahead, Jack.
For anyone listening, he took that idea from me because I was the next one in line to write that story, but he had already written it. So
that's what I was thinking. Brilliant minds, though, man.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, this is tough because I do not want to pick the Vikings to lose this game, but you guys want to hear a funny score prediction? I'll be that guy and I'll say 29-24 if you remember what that's from. 29-24.
Was that 2009?
It was the score from
2009?
January 14th last year.
Yeah, I was about to say that was Liverpool, wasn't it?
So I'll be that guy that's going to say the Vikings are going to have their coming out party tonight with injuries. They're going to, I don't know, it's going to be a close game, and I just don't want to say the Vikings are going to lose. I don't have a lot of confidence in this pick, but I'll just say Vikes 29, Saints 24.
So I can't remember the exact score that I gave whenever I do like my weekly picks. So if it's a little off, I'm sorry. But I'm predicting we win by 10. So I think I said like 28-38. Yeah, and like the whole reasoning behind it is it's prime time. I think the Vikings offense can shoot with the Saints, and then I think the Saints defense is not good, and the Vikings defense is good, even with injuries. So I think we're going to win like 38-28, and I'm just predicting now Thielen gets like 101, just so he gets the little over 100, and then Diggs gets like 220 and 3 touchdowns. Diggs is going to slow up tonight. It's going to be insane.
7 heaven, baby. 7 heaven.
And I will give credit where credit's due. If I remember correctly, I know, Jordan, you've predicted like the Eagles game you said would be a two. You've predicted a couple with like 2 possession wins.
I predicted the which one was it? Was it last week that I predicted a 2 possession win or something? Oh, like a 3 possession win. I predicted a blowout last week and we got it. The Eagles game I thought was going to be 2 possession, and then it was.
Yeah.
We gave up that last second touchdown in garbage time, and I was like, bless it. Like, come on, man.
I think the Eagles game I was a point off. I think I said 23-20. It was 23-21. But I'm not 100% sure. Don't hold me to it.
Well, basically the summary is I'm always wrong. So I'm hoping that continues this week. I really am.
Hey, but that's what's fun about predictions, though, because you can be wrong all you want. That's what they get paid for on Fox. So
especially with this new social media idea that we got brewing, this new startup, DeleteYourTweet.com.
I think too. I am ecstatic to see Everson come out of that tournament. I'm pumped for him to be back, and I think that with the injuries, that is exactly what this team needs. Somebody like that can kind of rile them up and
it's like a movie.
Not only get the team going, but that guy is always doing the skull chant and getting the crowd fired up, and this crowd's going to come in very loud tonight, so I'm really looking forward to that.
I just have to throw in 2 things, though. Like, one, I predicted Everson was coming back at the playoffs to win a Super Bowl, so he scooped all over that.
That's right.
But then, 2, let Cousins do the dang pregame speech with the team.
Yes,
I don't care.
Good call.
We are undefeated when he does it. I want to see the graphic on NBC that says that we are 3-0 when Kirk Cousins gives a pregame speech. Like, that's my favorite statistic in the game right now.
And my favorite meme right now is find you a girl that looks at you the way Diggs looks at Cousins during his pregame speeches.
That's classic. Well, thanks everyone for listening. We actually did record last week, but then the audio went sideways, so that didn't get posted because I just didn't think I'd do that to your guys' ears. But we appreciate all the support. Check out About the Labor guys, Drew, Sean, and Nick over on Vikings Territory. They're going to be doing the post-game show tonight. And then check out the sites, purpleTSD Vikings Territory, for all the post-game stuff, and through the week for all the little tidbits that come out. But hopefully we'll have some good news, because I do believe the Packers ended up losing.
They did.
Yep.
There we go. So, the good start to the day.
He had a wide-open touchdown at the end of the game, and he fell down at the 1 so they could knee the ball instead of throwing it.
Story of my fantasy season right there. But yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week. Skol!
Skol.